President Trump spoke at length yesterday about his upcoming meeting on Friday with Russia's Vladimir Putin. Trump offered mixed messages on what to expect from their discussions. He said it's not up to him whether a deal is made, but that he'll try to get, quote, prime territory back for Ukraine. He also hinted that the U.S. may pull out of talks entirely and again brought up the idea that both Russia and Ukraine will be swapping land.
But I thought it was very respectful that the president of Russia is coming to our country as opposed to us going to his country or even a third-party place. But I think we'll have constructive conversations. Then after that meeting, immediately, maybe as I'm flying out, maybe as I'm leaving the room, I'll be calling the European leaders who I get along with very well. And, I have a great relationship, I think, with all of them. And I get along with Zelensky, but, I disagree with what he's done. Very, very severely disagree. This is a war that should have never happened, wouldn't have happened. But I'll be speaking to Zelensky. The next meeting will be with Zelensky and Putin, or Zelensky and Putin and me. I'll be there if they need. But I want to have a meeting set up between the two leaders. I was a little bothered by the fact that Zelensky was saying, well, I have to get constitutional approval. I mean, he's got approval to go into war and kill everybody, but he needs approval to do a land swap because there'll be some land swapping going on. They've occupied some very prime territory. We're going to try and get some of that territory back for Ukraine. But they've taken some very prime territory. They've taken largely ocean. In real estate, we call it oceanfront property. That's always the most valuable property. But I'm going to meet with President Putin, and we're going to see what he has in mind. And if it's a fair deal, I'll reveal it to the European Union leaders and to the NATO leaders, and also to President Zelensky. I think out of respect, I'll call him first, and then I'll call them after. And I may say, lots of luck, keep fighting. Or I may say we can make a deal.
President Trump is expected to join a virtual call with European leaders tomorrow, where they are planning to urge him to involve Ukrainian President Zelensky in Friday's talks. Joining us now is national security reporter for The Wall Street Journal, Alex Ward. Alex, that's your reporting we just referenced. What can we expect from the talks with European leaders here?
Well, they're going to try to get Trump on side, basically, right? So what Trump's been talking about for a while has been, hey, we're going to get this ceasefire, and then there's going to be these land swaps, and whether it's along the line of contact or whatnot. For the Europeans and the Ukrainians, their main thing is ceasefire first, hope it holds, and then we can have these broader discussions, not only about land swaps, but also whether Ukraine can join NATO or the European Union or what other kinds of security guarantees it could get so it doesn't face Russian aggression at any point again in the future. Mm-hmm. So that's where they are. There's already a bit of a difference between how Trump's thinking about this and how the Europeans are thinking about this. And so this Wednesday meeting, let's call it a diplomatic strategy huddle ahead of the Putin summit.
Has there any sense or reporting that Trump has gotten any concessions whatsoever for meeting Putin in the first place, which is usually how this stuff works, right? You have some sort of diplomatic agreement, groundwork in place, and then you hold the meeting. Has anything surfaced to suggest that that's happened?
Very minor. So Putin's initial stance was he needs to get all 5 territories of Ukraine basically handed over to him immediately. After his meeting with Witkoff, the special envoy, Steve Witkoff, last week, Putin said, OK, I'll take 3 territories immediately and 2 we can discuss in the future. And the Trump administration took that as a sign of an accommodation. Okay. They went, OK, that shows at least some progress. There's something we can work with here. And that's what sparked this movement to the quick meeting that Putin offered Trump.
Okay. Stay with us. We're going to turn to the Middle East and Israel's offensive in Gaza. 2 Israeli officials who attended last Thursday's cabinet meeting where an expansion of Israel's operations in Gaza was approved tell Reuters that the complete evacuation of civilians from the affected areas may only be complete by the start of October. That may leave a small window of time between now and then for a ceasefire deal to be reached. Meanwhile, Israeli airstrikes in the Gaza Strip continued yesterday, one day after a strike killed 5 journalists of the Al Jazeera network. All right, Alex, I read the Reuters stuff and immediately thought the most optimistic view of all of this and again, there's very little optimism in any of this, but the most optimistic in all this is that what Israel's trying to do is create the conditions for a ceasefire, that this is, in effect, a bluff, saying, hey, we can occupy all of Gaza City, come to the table, or release the hostages, et cetera, et cetera. Is there any credence to that in the reporting out there, any sense that that might actually be what's happening here?
Well, Netanyahu's whole strategy has been pressure Hamas to make a deal. That's been going on for years now, and we've seen Hamas not make a deal. They've given up a lot of their hostages, but there's still about 50 remaining, 20 of which believed to be alive. So the fact that they're going after Gaza City, is that really going to be the thing that convinces Hamas to give up the hostages and agree to a peace deal? Unlikely. On top of that, also, Netanyahu still has his government coalition that wants him to keep fighting. And so for him to stay in charge, he has to kind of continue this fight. So it could be seen as a way for Netanyahu to show or to claim, hey, I'm pressuring Hamas and keeping my governing coalition together. But he's also facing Trump in all of this, who does say he wants the war to end and a peace deal to be done. At the same time, he's not pressuring Netanyahu to stop.
I want to talk about the killing of those 5 Al Jazeera journalists. This has been a horrific fight with respect to not just humanitarian deaths, obviously, and starvation, but for reporters, too. I believe roughly 200 reporters have been killed during the coverage of this war. The international outcry over this, again, is there, but it doesn't seem to be impacting Israel. Can you talk a little bit about how Netanyahu is risking becoming or turning Israel into a pariah on the international stage, and what the killing of these journalists does in terms of that process?
I think Israel's already at risk of that, if not somewhat already there. I mean, the fact that you have some countries, allies of Israel, saying, hey, they would recognize a Palestinian state by September. You have, with the UN National General Assembly around the corner in that month, you have a bunch of countries basically saying, hey, Israel, you have squandered on the goodwill that was there after October 7th. As awful as October 7th was, the world was behind Israel and tried to help it out. And this was an argument that the Biden administration made and the start of the Trump administration made, which was, work with the world to end this war. And in terms of the journalist situation, I mean, yeah, that's been one of the stains on Israel throughout this whole process. On top of that, they haven't really allowed independent international journalists to come out, international journalists to go into Gaza and report independently. So, and when you talk to Israeli officials about this, they say, we wish we could do that, but if we allowed all these journalists in and something were to happen, then you would blame us. And so they think, us being the Israelis. And so they think that it's better for them to keep international reporters out and things, and as the war continues and journalists are in dangerous places, we see.
Well, in this case, the Israeli government says, well, one of these journalists was affiliated with Hamas, a charge that Al Jazeera strenuously has denied. It's a tragedy either way to see loss of life. Alex Ward, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.